Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, colleagues. My name is Gráinne Maloney and I am a Senior Nutrition Advisor joining you from UNICEF headquarters in New York, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar. Today, one year ago today, in fact, on the 6th of December, we celebrated an extraordinary event. This event was the Nutrition for Growth Summit that was hosted by the government of Japan in Tokyo. And an extraordinarily amount of money and government commitments were pledged on this very day, $27 billion, and over 60 governments made pledges and commitments to improve nutrition outcomes for their population. Now, 1 year on, we are gathering today as one of 4 regional webinars called Igniting Joint Action for N4G Commitments to reflect on this year, to see how far have we come, and to hear from a panel of speakers on progress that has been made. Now we are, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping and then we're going to talk through what the agenda looks like. So in terms of housekeeping, I'm delighted to say that we have interpretation services available in Arabic. So if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you will see the little globe button. So if you would like to hear the conversation in Arabic, please click on the globe. If you have questions, please do not keep them until the end of the session. Please start placing your questions in the Q&A box, which you will also see on the bottom of your screen. And importantly, we want to know who you are and where you are joining us from. So please add your name in the chat box, provide your name, your role, and where you are connecting from around the world. And then we will have an opportunity to maybe take some questions live at the end of today's session as well. So back to today's session, we have a packed agenda full of great speakers who will be bringing us up to date on progress. And in case you would like to hear this at a later stage or share any information with colleagues and partners, happy to say we are recording the session and that will be available to listen into on the Sun Movement website in the coming days. And we will share that link when it's available. Now let's go through today's agenda. We are going to listen to a recording from the Global Sun Movement Coordinator, Gerda Verburg. She will set the scene for us and again remind us of why this is such an important event. Then we are delighted, we're going to hear from Dr. Renata Mika from the Global Nutrition Report, who is going to give us a presentation on the Year of Action Report findings, noting it has just been released in the last hour. So this is hot off the press. And she will also take us through the Nutrition Accountability Tracker. And then that will be followed by a panel discussion where we will hear from speakers from government, Sun representatives from 3 different countries, from Kenya, from Sierra Leone and from Sudan, on their progress and the opportunities and challenges they are facing to actually implement the commitments their country has made. And then finally, we look forward to hearing from you all. A Q&A session where you can raise your questions, offer suggestions, and also share your experiences of how you have been implementing your commitments. And then we will have an inspiring message at the end to remind us that this is not just a once-off event, in fact, that we are leading up to the next Nutrition for Growth Summit in Paris. And we will hear from a Government of France representative to talk us through that. So with that in mind, we will start by listening to the opening remarks from Gerda, and sit back and listen and enjoy this recording. Thank you.
Good day. Welcome to this event. Can you imagine it's already a year ago that the Nutrition for Growth Summit was organized by Japan. And more countries than ever have made a strong commitment to invest in nutrition. A huge commitment. And after 1 year, it is time to take stock. Where are you in implementing the commitment of your country? Do you get the right support? Do you get enough support? What can you learn from others? What are the challenges you are facing? So this event is there to tell your story, to share your experiences, but also to ask your questions and to learn from each other. Because nutrition is something that you are making happen together. And for that reason, I invite you, speak up and speak out, so that after this event, we are all inspired to even gear up nutrition as the best investment in people's future and the future for our countries. Thank you.
Well, hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. I'll be helping Grania today with moderation. My name is Sergio Teixeira. I'm a Deputy Director of the Technical Assistance Mechanism at Nutrition International. And just following up on Gerda's words there, I think it's important just for us all to take a minute and recognize that it's been a tough year. And it may seem like it was a long time ago when countries and organizations made their N4G commitments. And when they did that, the context was different. There's been a lot of challenges over the last year with rising food prices, rising energy prices, conflict, and so much more. But we still thought it was an opportune moment to have this session and to just bring us all back together and discuss N4G commitments, and not with the perspective of applying pressure at this time, but just having an opportunity for people to come together, share their experiences, share their challenges, maybe more than anything, and get some updates on some key information as well. So a couple of points. One point is just, I think Grania mentioned that you could use the chat to introduce yourself and post questions, but actually we'd ask that you use the Q&A function. So please click on the Q&A box. And you can then introduce yourselves, your name, title, country, organization. And then also, please do post questions there, and we'll try and address some of them in the Q&A. So it's now my pleasure to introduce, like Grania mentioned, Dr. Renata Mika. Renata is the chair of the independent expert group of the Global Nutrition Report. And she'll be speaking to us a little bit about the Nutrition Accountability Framework, also reminding us of some tools and resources that you can access and use, and also share some key findings from the commitments registered during the year of action. So that's it from me. Over to you, Renata.
Thank you so much, Sergio, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today, the day of the official launch of the latest 2022 Global Nutrition Report, Stronger Commitments for Greater Action. I would like, of course, to thank the organizers for the invitation and everyone that has joined this important event. This presentation is going to take us through the Nutrition Accountability Framework and its value, as well as present key findings on commitments made by stakeholders in the Nutrition Year of Action. The need for more action supported by strengthened accountability was highlighted throughout 2021, a year that has been endorsed as the Nutrition Year of Action. It was initiated in December 2020 and was successfully concluded in December 2021, a year ago, with the Tokyo N4G Summit. Why is this need now more important than ever? We face a global nutrition crisis with worrying trends across every form of malnutrition, from hunger to obesity. To put things in perspective, 1 in 10 people are hungry or undernourished, and 1 in 3 adults are overweight or obese. The current nutrition challenges faced by countries worldwide, which continue to be stressed by COVID-19 and the impacts of climate change, are expected to worsen even further, as the war in Ukraine has had impacts on food and nutrition security globally. Solving the global nutrition crisis has never been more urgent and must be tackled by all working together. To deliver such a step change in action, we need a step change in accountability that will allow us to ensure commitments translate into much needed impact. The GNR was endorsed to provide this step change in accountability. In the Nutrition Year of Action, we launched the Nutrition Accountability Framework, in short, the NAF, the first global independent public platform for monitoring nutrition action. The NAF enables all commitments on nutrition, including and beyond N4G, to be consistently monitored and reported on publicly. By capturing commitments from anyone at any time, it has the potential to improve our understanding of nutrition action like never before. Critically, the NAF is promoting transparency and a shared culture of responsibility across diverse actors. So how does the NAF work? This visual shows you the full cycle of the NAF, which includes 8 steps involving the active engagement of stakeholders, the orange boxes, with the GNR, the blue boxes. In short, stakeholders develop smart commitments using the NAF guidance. Then they register the commitments using the NAF platform. The GNR reviews registered commitments for eligibility and assigns them to relevant action categories and assesses their smartness. And then the GNR publishes those commitments on the NAF commitment tracker and updates data as this is being verified. Stakeholders report on progress made towards those commitments annually. The GNR reviews this progress, and then it verifies and publishes the progress. Lastly, stakeholders learn from published data, evidence, and guidance, enabling them to make new and strengthened commitments. And the cycle continues. A fundamental principle in all processes is transparency. In doing so, the NAF builds trust and supports stronger collaboration between stakeholders, and it provides the information necessary to deliver better nutrition outcomes. The GNR has developed robust tools to support each step of the NAF cycle. These include the NAF platform, which is an online platform for stakeholders to sign up, register, and report on the progress of their commitments. The forms we use have standardized fields to ensure commitments are smart and to allow us to monitor progress towards those commitments. The Nutrition Action Classification System, which identifies the type of action taken in a consistent and standardized way. This means that for the first time, we're able to map nutrition action in a holistic and clear way. The Nutrition Action Smartness Index, which is a ranking system that allows us to assess and report on the smartness of commitments made. It also supports stakeholders make their commitments as smart and as trackable as possible. And the NAF Commitment Tracker, which is an online interactive tool that makes all data on commitments publicly available. Through the verification process, stakeholders can provide additional clarifications on registered commitments that are subsequently reflected on this online tool. The NAF and its tools will evolve over time, allowing us to share learnings, identify gaps in action, and critically inform priority setting. The NAF enabled stakeholders in the Nutrition Year of Action to register their commitments, and then allowed the GNR to analyze and report on those. In the slides that follow, we're going to take a glimpse of these findings. An unprecedented number of nutrition commitments has been made, including over $42.6 billion in financial investments. 198 stakeholders from 84 countries made 433 commitments with 897 goals. Most were made by 78 country governments making domestic commitments, followed by 56 civil society organizations, 30 private sector businesses, 21 donors, including donor governments, 7 international organizations, and 7 academic institutions. The 2021 Tokyo N4G Summit was the most successful to date, with 859 goals committed, making up 96% of all goals registered. This is almost double the number of goals made at previous N4G summits. Geographical coverage of commitments ranged from global to local, and most had national coverage. Separating out the goals that specified a target country, and this is what the map shows us, we found that these concentrated in the regions of Africa and South and Southeast Asia, primarily aimed at low and lower middle income countries. This visual now shows us the type of commitments made by all stakeholders using the Nutrition Action Classification System. This system allowed us to classify commitment goals into 3 main levels: enabling, the orange part of this pie; policy, the dark blue; and impact, the light blue, each further broken down into 4 subcategories. For example, financial is an enabling subcategory, and undernutrition, an impact subcategory. Almost half of all commitment goals were categorized as enabling, focused on creating an enabling environment for nutrition action. Leadership and governance was the most prominent type, recognizing bold political leadership and good governance as foundations for delivering effective nutrition policies. There was also a strong focus on undernutrition. This aligns with low and lower middle-income countries being mostly targeted. By contrast, diet, obesity and diet-related NCDs, and food and nutrition security received the least attention. These findings highlight the need for far greater focus on food and nutrition security. Stakeholders aligned the majority of their commitments with the maternal, infant, and young child nutrition targets. In contrast, just 8% of the commitments were aligned only with the diet-related NCD targets, while a third of commitments aligned with both sets of targets. This important effort shown in commitments to tackle undernutrition should now be built up to ensure all forms of malnutrition and their drivers are addressed. The NAF facilitates the development of smart and trackable commitments. Using the Smartness Index, we find that around a quarter of commitment goals ranked high for smartness, 16% were upper moderate, 31% were lower moderate, and less than a third were low. Receiving a lower smartness ranking was usually due to missing information on how progress will be measured and on the cost of the commitment. Such missing data can be provided through the verification process, which can lead to improvements in the smartness. In addition to the overall findings, the report presents data for each stakeholder group separately. For today's presentation, we will go through key findings for governments and for donors. For all other stakeholder groups, including, of course, more findings on governments and donors, please refer to the 2022 GNR. Governments have shown an incredible level of engagement, representing the largest stakeholder group in commitment making. Their domestic goals prioritize enabling and impact actions rather than policy. Leadership and governance was the main focus of enabling actions. Key examples are the development of national laws, policies, and nutrition plans, and improving national coordination mechanisms. Undernutrition was the focus of impact actions, mainly committing to directly decreasing stunting, wasting, anemia, and low birth weight. Policy efforts were comparatively fewer, with the nutrition care services and food system policies represented by the food supply and the food environment receiving relatively equal attention. Looking at financial goals, governments pledged over $13.3 billion as domestic investments, including by increasing their national budget allocation to nutrition. Considering the constrained financial resources in lower income settings, this is a notable achievement. Governments prioritize the maternal, infant, young child nutrition targets over the diet-related NCD targets. The numbers in squares indicate the number of commitments that align with each of the global targets, with commitments often aligning with multiple targets. Looking at the maternal, infant, young child targets, most commitments align with the stunting and the wasting targets, while looking at the diet-related NCD targets, salt intake and blood pressure received the least attention. This focus on maternal and infant, young child nutrition targets is in line with such malnutrition burdens being prominent in low and lower middle income settings, with more and more countries now experiencing the double burden of malnutrition. Now moving on to key donor findings, including donor governments and donor organizations. 9 donor governments pledged more than $18.4 billion, while a small number of donors, 5, pledged $7.9 billion. In total, more than $26.3 billion was pledged by donors, which is the largest amount across N4G summits. Yet, there is a reliance on a relatively small number of actors. Greater diversity of actors is needed to ensure that funding decisions and allocations are based on an inclusive agenda and to reduce the vulnerability of the funding base they provide. There was also substantial mobilization from stakeholders to address nutrition impacts related to COVID-19. Looking at donors specifically, they committed a third of their financial pledges, more than $8.2 billion, to respond to the pandemic. Such efforts need to be scaled up, given the critical role donors have to play in mobilizing the financial investments required to respond to periods of crisis. Donor actions go beyond financial investments, and these are covered in greater detail in the report. Observed findings led to 5 key recommendations that can help us fix the global nutrition crisis. 1. We need a far broader constituency of actors to step up worldwide and make commitments to improve nutrition that can be accounted for. 2. We need commitments to reflect sustained and increased external and domestic financing for nutrition that can be easily tracked. 3. We need far greater attention on food security that truly includes nutrition security by placing greater emphasis on quality of food and not only on access to quantity of food. 4, we need commitments that will bring transformative policies for our food system and deliver universal access to healthy, affordable, and sustainably produced food. 5, we need commitments that promote universal access to nutrition care services that are integrated in the health system. And finally, we urge all stakeholders to continue using the NAF for greater action. The NAF increases evidence, knowledge, and learning about nutrition action in a way that builds trust, enhances collaboration, and strengthens efforts that lead to ever more impactful action. So coming back to the NAF cycle and next steps, in addition, of course, to registering and making new commitments, in terms of commitments already registered, the verification of those is currently ongoing. Roughly a third of commitment makers have already been contacted, and the remainder will be contacted in January. Progress reporting against those commitments is expected to start in 2023. That's all for me. I encourage everyone to review the report and engage with us on social media. Thank you. Back to you, Sergio.
Thank you so much, Dr. Renata. Back to Grania. That was fantastic. And I think you really set the scene well, showing us the level of detail of all of those commitments that were made last year, which is really inspiring. And for sure, we've had a really difficult year. So now we want to hear what's actually happening since those commitments have been made. We're going to hear from a select number of colleagues who are actually on the ground implementing these commitments, working for their governments, working with the partners to improve nutrition outcomes for their populations. And just to say, this is the third of 4 regional webinars. So we are going to listen to it, the geography of the Anglophone Africa and some of the Arabic-speaking countries in Africa region, noting that our colleagues from Francophone Africa and from the Asia region have already had similar webinars. And our colleagues in Latin America Caribbean region will have the same webinar next week on the 14th. And all of those webinars will be available and the recordings will be shared in the coming weeks. So now back to our Anglo-Africa colleagues. I'm delighted to introduce 3 distinguished colleagues who are joining us from Kenya, Sierra Leone and Sudan. I see Gladys has just joined us from Kenya with her video. I know our colleagues Bernadette and Najla from Sierra Leone and Sudan unfortunately are having some technical difficulties with their videos, but we are able to hear them loud and well. So I'm going to start introducing our colleagues from Kenya. Ms. Gladys Mugambi, I'm delighted to introduce you, who is the head of the Division of Health Promotion and the Government Sun Focal Point. Welcome, Gladys. Then followed by our colleague from Sierra Leone, Ms. Bernadette Alieu, who is the tech of the Sierra Leonean Sun Secretariat. and that is hosted under the Office of the Vice President. And finally, moving back to Khartoum, I'm delighted to welcome Ms. Najla Khadir, who is the National Sun Coordinator for the Government of Sudan. So colleagues, friends and ladies, welcome to this panel. We're delighted you can join us today. So we're going to go alphabetical. Gladys, I'm going to start with you. Kenya has made impressive commitments under Nutrition for Growth, and we'd like to hear from you about progress against these commitments, acknowledging the current challenges faced by the global food and nutrition crisis. So can you tell us a little bit more about the progress in Kenya against the commitments made a year ago? Over to you.
Thank you, Gronia, and thanks everyone for inviting me to this meeting. What I'll share from Kenya is that we made commitments. We have the double burden of malnutrition. So we have undernutrition and we have obesity and we have micronutrient deficiencies. So we've made several commitments, mainly to ensure that we are coordinating well, that we are mobilizing resources, and we are also able to reach the lowest level, that is at the county level. So what we've been able to do is mobilize our partners, and we're funding from several partners who are supporting us to ensure that the counties are developing their own action plans after we developed the national action plan and launched it. This action plan has several areas that we are focusing on so that we can deal with the double burden of malnutrition or the triple burden of malnutrition. And therefore, we have focused on areas of coordination. We are able to hold our technical working groups frequently so that we are able to get updates on what is happening on the ground. In terms of mobilizing resources, our partners, especially civil society, UNICEF, have also worked very well to ensure that we support the counties to develop their action plans. So far, over 28 counties out of 47 have been able to develop their own plans. And you know, without a plan, then it's difficult to even monitor the progress. Then we have had a chance also to engage the various stakeholders, various sectors. We are working with the Ministry of Agriculture, Education, Social Protection, and since we are also bringing in the business and the private sector, we've been able to bring in the Ministry of Trade. Under the Scaling Up Nutrition, we formed all the networks required so that we can be able to rally people behind our plan, that is the bigger nutrition plan for the national level. And so we have the private sector who have formed the Sun Business Network, the civil society have formed the civil society network. We have the donors, we have the UN, and we usually meet as ministries, various ministries together to look at how we are performing. So we have had a chance also to have our partners, the civil society, especially Nutrition International, giving some funding, whereby the counties are able to also bring in more money for domestic resource mobilization, which is really key. So 11 counties have been able to commit themselves, and just this week, they were able to declare that they are going to continuously put resources to nutrition so that we can be able to implement the activities that are planned in the action plan. And in terms of programming, we have various programs. We are focusing on the healthy diets and working towards ensuring that the counties are having programs that are reaching the household level, working with communities and community health volunteers in the health sector, and even the farmers to ensure that they are consuming foods that are nutritious and that the foods are available. But we face the challenge of there's the global crisis. Things are becoming expensive in Kenya, just like other countries. But also we have the effect of drought, which has been affecting our country for a long time, we've made progress, but the progress we are making is actually taking a lot of resources. And what we would like to see is that we are reducing the amount of money we are spending on treating malnutrition. Because when we have a crisis, we end up spending a lot of money on treatment. So we would like to see that we are reducing that. So some of our partners are also supporting counties that have that problem, so that they can be able to come in with programs like in agriculture, growing crops that are drought resistant, and also the resources available, like counties where they are able to keep animals for food, supporting them so that they can also be able to continue surviving even when we have a crisis. But generally, in response to the crisis that we are having, the food is expensive. The government is trying to support the lowest, the very poor people with some cheap loans, so that they can be able to do small businesses and get money so that they can buy food. But also there is the aspect of importation. We are trying to import food that we may require. So the government is also committing to do that so that our people do not suffer. Maybe those are a few of the things that we've been able to do, and I can give more information as we continue. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gladys. I think that was an excellent overview where you really touched on many issues, including how the Kenyan government is responding to the crisis, how you're dealing with multiple forms of malnutrition, and the coordination with partners, and really that equity lens. How do you reach the poorest of the poor? And of course, full disclaimer here, I spent 14 very happy years living and working in Kenya with Gladys. So I'm always thrilled to hear of the wonderful progress in Kenya. Now we're going to move across the continent to Sierra Leone and to our colleague Bernadette. Bernadette, can I ask you the same question? How has your government, the commitments that you made under N4G, could you please give us an overview of the progress, acknowledging the challenges of the global crisis, and what kind of strategies your government has taken on to address those? Over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, all colleagues, as the case may be. I'm delighted to be here this morning to give an overview of what is happening in our country after our commitments. Sierra Leone has made 10 commitments for nutrition for growth, of which 2 are aligned with World Health Assembly commitment and Sustainable Development Goals commitment. That is commitment 1 and 2. 3 are about nutrition financing. That is commitment 3, 9, and 4. 1 is related to nutrition governance. That is commitment 5. 2 are about nutrition information. That is commitment 6 and 10. And 2 are about food system. That is 7 and 8. Of the 10 commitments, 4 are on track after a year of implementation. These commitments that are on track are commitments on stunting reduction, nutrition financing, and nutrition information system strengthening. Sierra Leone has made progress in reducing stunting from 29% in 2019 to 26.2% in 2021. Domestic financing for the procurement of nutrition therapeutic supplies have improved from no funding support using government resources to 4% of nutrition supplies procured using government resources in 2022. Strengthening nutrition information system to support evidence-based decision-making is key on the agenda of government of Sierra Leone. This year, the development of the nutrition information strategy has been initiated, and the country hopes to have the draft validated in Q1 2023. In addition, the 2021 National Nutrition Survey was the first survey completed in country that collected information on adolescent girls and boys aged 10 to 19 years of age. However, looking at the global food crisis, the government of Sierra Leone recognizes the importance of all 10 commitments made in having a resilient food and nutrition system. While there has not been major adjustments made in programs and services related to food and nutrition supported by the government, a lot of focus has been made to, one, improve early warning system through the development of a national nutrition surveillance guidelines, concurrently with the national nutrition information strategy. Two, we have developed a comprehensive and resilient food and nutrition system plan. And we are also scaling up social protection services to support households most affected by the crisis. That is how we are trying to combat with the global issues around. As a country highly vulnerable to global economic crisis, climate change, and emergencies, having a reliable and robust nutrition information system to provide indication of changes in food and nutrition status of the population is important. In this light, the government of Sierra Leone, together with its partners, has also prioritized, one, the development of the National Nutrition Surveillance Guidelines, concurrently with the National Nutrition Information Strategy. Development of a comprehensive and resilient food and nutrition system plan. And we are also scaling up social protection services to support households most affected. How are we working with our partners? Sierra Leone is a resource-constrained country. Thus, it is important for the government of Sierra Leone to employ the support of everyone to fulfill its global and national commitments. The human capital agenda of the government of Sierra Leone has recognized the importance of engaging the public, private, business sector, the academia, civil society, international organizations, and donors. The country has also ensured that regional and global platforms are engaged to employ opportunities to financing, partnership, technology, and knowledge exchange. Stakeholders' engagement are organized through existing coordination platforms, such as scaling up nutrition movements in country and food security and nutrition working groups, among others. The country also ensured opportunities and representation of the public, private, and business, civil society, and academic sectors, as well to recognize through the national and subnational dialogues on the food system, nutrition food systems. What have we prioritized? As I've said, continue work on the strengthening nutrition information system is high on the agenda of the government of Sierra Leone. Finalization and launch of the National Nutrition Information Strategy early next year will eliminate guesswork in addressing the food and nutrition problems, especially during crises or emergencies, and build the foundation for evidence-based and contextualized strategies and reforms, food and nutrition. That is where we are as it is.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Bernadette. That was fascinating, and I particularly heard your emphasis on evidence-based planning and programming, where you're really investing in your information and your data and your surveillance. So really grateful. Thank you so much for that oversight. And now we're going to move back towards the east and up a bit north to Khartoum, to Najla. Najla, can you describe for us what's been happening in Sudan in the last 12 months? Again, it's not been an easy time, but it would be great to hear the progress from your government and what's been happening in Sudan in the last 12 months based on your commitments. Over to you.
Hello, thank you for inviting Sudan for this important meeting to show our commitment and progress toward this commitment. In fact, the biggest progress that we are attained in the Nutrition for Growth making process was very broad and widening. As it involved partners from food security, health system, and humanitarian community in the country. And this is brought a lot of visibility in the country for nutrition among the high leaders, different partners in different sectors, which is as a result is give opportunity us enough to reactivate the Sun Steering Committee, which is led by the Sun focal person and involving 14 ministries, which is very great achievements and commitment from the government. In addition to that, we also very useful to expand the membership of the TAG Technical Advisory Group for SASUN, which is a coordination platforms for multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholders platform. We are able to reach out more partners and stakeholders. For example, UNDP has joined the UN network, and World Bank is recently showed their interest to join the technical working group to participate in the development of the National Multisectoral Nutrition Plan. Other important things, it's come following the Nutrition for Growth commitment is high-level governance convening led by governments was taken in October 12, where the 7 line ministries making a statement of declaration to end malnutrition through their commitment to support the development and implementation of national multisectoral plan and ensure those ministries' annual plan for 2023 and beyond are aligned with the national multisectoral plan. Also, they are committed to assign a focal person for nutrition in each nutrition ministry that would eventually grow into a nutrition unit later. Also mobilize and allocate resources from the government's own resource in line with the Nutrition for Growth commitment for Sudan, and ensuring ensuring the mutual accountability by institutionalizing the Sun governance and accountability framework. They committed to regularly participate in the Sudan Steering Committee, technical working groups and core groups and other leads group for Sun. This is a big achievements we have, but having say this, I wanted to quick mention a few challenges we had faced due to political instability of the country, which is lead for absence of high-level cabinet leadership in the country, and high turnover in leaders. which is create delay in the progress of the commitment we raised for Sudan. As a result of that, also big challenges we face is fund restriction, and some funds were freeze by some donors and partners, which affected the progress as well. Also, this has affected the microeconomic instability in the country, which has significantly diminished household purchasing power and affecting the overall food and nutrition security of the country. But we adopt these challenges generally by putting in place a very comprehensive social safety net system, which is planned already to cover and to reach 80% of the people affected by food insecurity through cash transfer programming from World Bank, WFP, and UNICEF, and all partners who support the cash programming program approach. Also, we institutionalize the traditional Islamic practice through social development, which is called the Zakah Fund, where the private sector have a huge contribution, financial support and contribution to support the situation and response to the situation in the country. It's like innovative way of using the indigenous wisdom and religions practice to support the country. Also, the humanitarian response plan are consider all the contributing factors in the country for this insecurity situation, and in their plans, response plan, and automatically the partners plan also is give more focus on most affected areas. At our level in ASUN development approach, we give more adopted for this insecurity situation by give more focus on some progress toward nutrition for growth commitment to work on a technical level, including directorate level and units head level, which more or less more stable human power that is not affected by political situation. So we work more through the technical working group, and we developed national guidelines on how to develop a national multi-sectoral nutrition plan. Also, this take place through a wide consultation across all key sectors and partners. And also create a consensus around the need to work toward the nutrition for growth commitment to achieve SDGs. This has created a lot of consensus about the importance of multi-sectorality and how we should approach multi-sectoral nutrition planning and implementation. In the coming period, we give very much focus on developing to keep the momentum and working close with multi-stakeholder platforms, including the TAG, Technical Advisory Group, on the core group, and activation of the SUN networks, and keep them updates on the progress, challenges, and seek joint solution with them. We have an example where we focus on working with the core group. I give an example, for instance, when we face a gap on operation of the SUN in the country. So with the engagement of this core group, the funding agencies and Italian cooperation donor, thanks for all of them, is supporting the operation of the SUN in Sudan. Now we are, all the efforts in Sudan is focusing on developing the national multi-sectoral nutrition plan, and we are focused to have a full engagement with all partners in Sudan, and to ensure later the commitment toward these national priorities. And for sure, the Nutrition for Growth commitment is in the center of this national multi-sectoral plan. As I said, we will work more on activation of the networks and supporting developing the system approach and around the common priorities, which will be part of the plan. This is the main achievements we do in the past year, putting in place all the challenges we face in the countries, but we will keep the momentum, and we have a lot of plan and action to move forward on the achievements of Nutrition for Growth. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Najla. As I was listening to you, the words that came to mind for me were things like adapt to the circumstances, be flexible. I think as you were speaking, every time that you mentioned a challenge, you followed it up with a solution that you were trying, which is so inspiring, right? It didn't just stay at a challenge, but then you moved on to the solution that you were trying to see if that would help. And some of the things that I retained as well were around the importance of making nutrition visible, and how you're engaging with as many sectors and as many actors as you can, and just making sure that everyone is engaged and understands what nutrition is about and why it's important. And it's just so important to break out of our usual group, our usual circle, and reach out and speak to as many people as we can, and try and get everyone to just contribute something to try and move the dial. So thank you so much for your presentation, Najla. So we've only got a few minutes left. So what we're going to do is we're going to just ask, and I would ask each of the three speakers to give a 30-second message to everyone else. If you were to say one thing that you think would be the most helpful, or the most encouraging, or the greatest insight that you could share about how can other countries that are on the line today can make better progress towards their N4G commitments, in 30 seconds, what would you say to the audience today? What would be the most inspiring thing? What would be the best lesson that you could share? So I'll go to Gladys first. Over to you, Gladys.
Thank you. Yes, now that we are discussing about data, of course, we need to know how we are performing and the progress we are making. What we need to learn as countries is that we need to have systems for collection of data up to the lowest level. For Kenya, we have tried to do that, and we have a dashboard, which I didn't mention. So for us to track our progress, also we need to bring together all the stakeholders so that we are able to know what each person is doing. But also we must have a clear plan, what we want to do, and have that common plan used by everyone. That's what I would say.
Thanks so much for that, Gladys. Use data. Data is so valuable. Bring everyone together and have a common plan. Thanks so much. And now over to Bernadette for Sierra Leone.
Thank you so much. High-level commitments and building strong partnership with all stakeholders are two of the main ingredients that has proven to be effective in allowing Sierra Leone to move forward with its food and nutrition agenda. Therefore, I will want to crave on the audience of all to follow suit if they want to see progress. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Bernadette. And now over to Najla.
Thank you. My word is to keep the momentum on the multi-sectoral platforms going, expand a membership, reach out to new members, and give more focus and efforts towards systematic change, and contribute to build a sustainable system, and work on institutional capacity from the community to the national level that will have a broad nutritional impact. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Najla. Now I'll hand back to Grania, who I think is going to introduce our last speaker for today.
Thank you so much. And we just checked the Q&A, and what we're finding is many notes of appreciation to our speakers. So well done. Thank you so much for our panelists of speakers. I think it was a very rich session. So now looking forward, as I mentioned at the beginning, Nutrition for Growth is a dynamic process. It's not something we just do once and we forget about it. This is a really important event that keeps us on our toes to reach the World Health Assembly targets and then onto 2030 to the SDGs. So I'm delighted to introduce our next hosting government from the government of France. We have Ms. Cécile Adam, who is from the government of France, from the department, the Human Development Department. So she's going to give us some highlights of what we can expect in Paris in 2024. Cécile, over to you.
Thank you very much. Dear Gerda, dear SAM focal points, dear country representatives, and dear N4G outreach group partners. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I am delighted to be with you today to make some closure remarks of this webinar. And I thank the N4G outreach group for involving us. As you know, France will host a next edition of Nutrition for Growth Summit in 2024 or 2025. The exact date and location have not yet been defined. We will therefore have the honor and the responsibility of succeeding the previous organizer, Japan, which did a great job in making a great success of this of the previous edition. The deterioration of nutrition, which was stressed by the GNR, amplified by the many current crises, complicates the collective achievement of our commitments. So staying mobilized all together is a real challenge. France, therefore, wishes to take up this challenge by continuing to work with all the partners in the frame of the preparation toward next N4G, so that nutrition gains visibility. Now we are still working on designing the internal organization, which will be responsible for preparing the summit. But in a very exploratory way, because it hasn't been validated at this stage, we would like to emphasize the following major themes in order to articulate them with the issue of malnutrition. And the themes are sustainable food systems, climate, and gender. In addition to all the impressive achievements described by today's speakers, I remember as take-home message of today's webinar the following. Mrs. Gladys emphasized on having data at the lowest level to be able to track the progress. Mrs. Bernadette stressed the importance of strong partnership with all stakeholders. And Mrs. Najla remember that we have to keep the momentum on the multi-stakeholders platform. I will stop here, and appointment is made for 2025. And milestones such as this webinar will be very precious on our road to N4G. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cécile. We really appreciate your commitment, and it keeps us motivated that we still have a lot of work to do, especially in these times. Now, I see we do have one question. Okay, they're both there. They're both, again, appreciations for colleagues who have spoken. Okay, one question, I'm just going to sneak it in there, is from Nina, is how can different countries in the African continent support each other more effectively? Well, I think it's events like this today. It's sharing our experiences, it's sharing our resources, it's sharing all of the learning that your countries have have been developing not just in the last year. This has been going on for many years. The costed plans, the information systems, how you got your countries to allocate domestic financing. There's so many working with the social protection system, and I think we can make sure that we facilitate through our regional platforms. How do we make those types of resources and learning available? But I'm wondering, would any of our colleagues, any of our panelists from Kenya, Sierra Leone or Sudan like to comment on that? And the question was specifically about how can African countries learn from each other. Would any of our speakers like to take that before we close? I see now there's questions coming in.
Yes, please.
Please, Bernadette, go ahead. Thank you.
Maybe in addition to what you have just said, we can also do like exchange visits from countries that are doing well. You go and see, and then you learn from them. Like the global gathering, those are all areas where people can go and learn, in addition to what you have said. That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. And I think now we are coming into the post-pandemic time. Hopefully a lot more travel will be possible. And I think that's a great idea. There's nothing more effective for learning than actually seeing on the ground what's happening. So I would like to thank all our speakers, starting with Gerda, and then Renata, and then our speakers from across the continent, Gladys, Bernadette, Najla, and then ending in France with Cecile. I think it's been an excellent session. I'm grateful also to the Sun Movement Secretariat for doing this amazing back of the scene support in this webinar, and of course to our fantastic interpreters online, and then to Sergio, who both Sergio and I have been on this journey, N4G journey, for a long time. So it's great to reconnect a year on and learn of all the great progress from all of these countries. It's really inspiring. My final message would be, please read the report that the Global Nutrition Board has just released. This is the first webinar of the 4 that actually can. We saw some of the tidbits from Renata earlier, but I think it's going to be a fantastic and important report for all of us in our work going forward. You'll see some of the questions are posted, some of the contacts are posted in the chat box from Charlotte. So a tracker, and we look forward to hearing and reading of the progress of the GNR going forward. So Sergio, any final thoughts from your side before we close out?
No, I just want to thank everybody and say it was really inspiring. It's great to hear what's happening in each of these 3 countries. So very inspiring. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. So again, always a pleasure. And for those of you who'd like to hear about what's happening in the Latin America Caribbean region, please join us on the 14th. There will be simultaneous translation also provided in Spanish and possibly French or Portuguese. But again, to all our panelists, thank you so much. Have a great day. The recordings will be shared and will be available on the Sun Movement's website in the weeks to come. And thank you and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.